you perceive symptoms of an illness as a message from your body that something needs attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a brilliant book. But what I can tell you most of the time when I look at people who have had different types of cancers, right, is that there's a big self-sacrifice in the cancer personality types, where they not always, we don't, it's not all or never, but on a spectrum, right, bell curve spectrum, a lot of people with cancer put themselves last, or they've become invisible, or they've deferred. They don't have a internal sense of agency, and the cancer comes in as an opportunity for them to like take charge of their healing, right? And I think probably the best example of that is a woman named Chris Carr, who wrote Crazy Sexy Cancer, and she basically talks about how she became the CEO of her health. And she talks about how, all the doctors said, she had lung cancer and all this stuff. And all the doctors said she had this much time to live. And she's like outpaced all of them by like decades plus, right? Chris Carr is an incredible human being. And, she did all the work that I just suggested, and she still has it in her body, but she's living with it. She's living in an mostly alkaline state, and she's doing her emotional work. But each chronic illness has a different purpose, right? If you think about diabetes, not type 1, but type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, I would ask you, like, what's not sweet about your life, right? What's missing? Because sugar is an analgesic that numbs pain. People focus on sugar and dopamine, but it's really the analgesia and the pain numbing that's really important. Or like if you have endometriosis or something like that, it's like, what's not being born through you, right? Like things like that, because you want to look at that level. It's not the only level that you want to look at, but you want to look through those levels to understand, like, there's more going on here than like an itis or an osis or whatever, right? There's more happening here than just the diagnosis itself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely very Louis Hay, like, looking at like where it's coming. If you can't speak, it's like, what are you not saying? And if you have a sore throat, it's like, if you have a sore throat, it's like, what are you not saying? Things like that. It's like looking at the body as a roadmap, like to kind of like leading you to the space.
And she had a huge data set, by the way. She worked with tens of thousands of people. I mean, there's a reason why You Can Heal Your Life sold like 40, 50 million copies, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I have it on my bookshelf. It's just a tiny little book, but it's basically like, you look up your symptom, and then it gives you a suggestion.
And I hate it every time. I'm like, and Louise is a friend of mine before she passed. It was so sad, but it's from the grave. I'm like, God damn it, Louise! Like, you're so right. Stop it.
It's so simple, right? I mean, like life generally, I mean, I've said this a few times lately. I tend to repeat a thought in my head until it's been vetted out, until I come to some sort of conclusion on it. But that life is like really simple, because it's kind of all information about ourselves.
That's right.
Everything, through everything. Through everything. And so, but yet it's complicated because we can't see ourselves.
Yes.
So it's kind of like my friend said, her and her daughter were having a conversation, and she's like, her daughter's really pretty spiritual for her age, for sure. She's just like 12. But she was talking to her daughter about insecurity, and she goes, Mom, she's like, you can't see yourself in 3D. You don't know how you move and how you look. And she's like, you only see yourself in 2D. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so brilliant.
Profound.
Like, right? You never, like, we never see ourselves in 3D to know how we navigate the world and how we look and how we feel. And, so anyway, is that it's all information about us, and that we need other people and other situations, call it a dis-ease, call it a person, a relationship, a promotion, a firing, a breakup, whatever it is, true love. We need all these things to see ourselves, because we can't see ourselves. Like, it has to continue to be reflected back through all these other mediums.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the beauty in it, because I think one of my favorite topics to talk about is relationships, because they're so complicated and funny if you look at it a certain way, but also so painful and awful, but also so beautiful and amazing. And I think one of the biggest misnomers is that people think that, for example, in a relationship, I just heard this with a client like the other day, they were dating, this woman was dating this guy, and they were getting closer and closer and closer and taking their time, and then they slept together, and then he like had a freak out and was like, oh my God, I just realized all this stuff is coming up and I have to go do the work on my own. And I'm like, Amateur move. Nope, that's not how it works. Because the purpose of relationship, like you get traumatized in relationship, it's the vessel for healing too, right? You don't heal on your own. So this whole idea to love myself before I get into a relationship is nonsense, avoidant bullshit, right?
Oh my God,
Okay.
preach and rip. Go on a tangent. I'm ready for it. I'm here for it.
Because the healing is through the relationship, right? It's through the relationship. And so I've said this a bunch, and I think it's so important. Obviously, what's the purpose of relationship? Well, in evolutionary biology, it's obviously procreation and safety in numbers, right? For mammals, we get along in numbers, right? And then you talk about, okay, then we're gonna like maybe help each other like amplify our purpose, and like each of us will have a bigger future together, right? Cool, awesome. Okay, romance, cool. Passion, cool. Check, awesome. We got all the good stuff. Maybe shared financial burdens, cool, awesome, right? Great, awesome. But the real juice in a relationship is twofold. One is to be a caretaker, and I use that word intentionally. If you don't like the fact that I'm using this word, because some people like caretaker, oh my God, look up the definition before you go further, okay? To become a caretaker of each other's traumatic parts, right? That is not the therapist, not a mom, not a dad, but to understand at like a very profound level what someone's pain is, like what is their pain, and then to intentionally do shit to help that not happen, and to like help to like make it better for that person in that area, and to have that be mutually reciprocal. So some people will say to me, Mastin, that's crazy. I do that, but I'm in the relationship with a narcissist and they don't do that. I'm like, no, you're not getting it. It has to be reciprocal, right? It can't just be one way. Okay. So by the way, if you know that you're in a relationship with a narcissist, what's your part in that? Get out of that relationship. Okay. Like knock it off, like get out. Right. But it's about having mutually reciprocal regulation so that the relationship becomes a place to regulate and to feel better rather than a place to escape from and avoid, right? It's like the opposite of what we've been taught.
So is this co-regulation versus codependency?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Thank you for saying that. That is so accurately clinical. So I love that. That's beautiful.
They're your words, my friend.
I know, but okay, that's true. Okay, but you said it, and okay, yeah, well, you said it, and that's really good. You just mirrored me, which is beautiful. So that maybe that's why I liked it so much. But so here's the second part. Okay, and so like one, you want to understand like, okay, this is this person's trauma. Here's the things that help them regulate, and vice versa. And I'm feeling reciprocation here. But the second part, and this is the hard part. Okay, and I think if I was like a guardian angel, like I would set life up this way just to be entertained by like the reality show called Earth, right? Like, because there's just so many things happening, and it's just like
that is what's happening, right? I think, by the way.
It's just like, oh, let's just keeping up with Earth. Let's just see how it's going down there, right?
I imagine that there's people up there with popcorn.
Totally.
Oh, can you believe that? Whoa, what an idiot! You know? Like,
yeah, totally.
They're so silly. They don't see it.
Yeah, totally. So this is what I think keeps the guardian angels amused, right? Is most people will say we shouldn't be together because we want different things, right? And that, Danica, is also an amateur move, okay? The reason why you shouldn't be together is because you don't know how to do different things together. And there's a big difference, because it's the things we have in common that attract us to each other, and it's our differences that grow us, right? And so knowing how to be different and together is like the master skill in relationship. And it is so hard because the way the world works is we pull in our mirror who has something that we're missing. And that initially makes it very exciting for us. But over time, it will dysregulate us because it starts to repeat old patterns unless we learn differentiation, which is how can I be my full self and my different self and really embody what I'm learning from this other person into my own being, so that they're a place where I can go to regulate, a place where I go to be safe and awesome. But I have my own life, my own boundaries, my own purpose, and we are different together. And the key skill set in that is knowing how to navigate the tension of being different. And most people have no clue how to do that because all these automatic patterns are coming up. And it is beautiful on the other side of that kind of that kind of growth, because you resolve things from childhood, you amplify your purpose, but then you can like be your own self, and neither party has to collapse, because usually you have one party takes up all the space, another party that's kind of collapsing in a relationship, right? And
Mm,
the most ideal relationship is both parties are like the light. Both parties, it's kind of like in chemistry, they're called exomers, noble gases, where they're
mm,
balanced, right? They're not trying to attract a negative or a positive, like negative and positive come together. Noble gases or exomers are completely balanced, and they don't attract negatives or positive because they're balanced. And the only way for like a noble gas like neon to be able to merge with another noble gas is they have to become light together, right? Which is
yeah.
why neon signs light up, right? Because they're temporarily
Oh,
merging. So to me, it's like an exomer vibe, where it's like, for us to actually be together, we both have to step into our light. And that's like
that's
beautiful and
beautiful.
cool. Yeah, I think so too, right?
I want
But
like
that's the
art
hard
made
stuff.
out of that. That whole
Yeah,
concept
totally.
needs to become art.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna get here regulate neon sign, which is kind of cheesy, but because it's like what it means beneath what it says, it's gonna say manifesting magic, but it's neon, and the neon represents kind of exomers, which is like basically
That's
two balanced beings coming together to make light, which I think is like so cool.
so cool. And they have to be like, that's beautiful.